Last time we ended with Shizuku being gruesomely pinned to the wall, but first, let's go back in time a few hours. We find Shizuku revealing her plan to preemptively ambush Amane, since she has no way to overcome his ability. Alice proclaims she'll be expelled from school, but Shizuku is okay with that as long as she can prevent Amane from facing her brother. Stella nor Iki would be okay with this. Nevertheless, Shizuku is determined to protect him. She then asks for help, and Alice agrees, since he knows just how deeply Shizuku cares for Iki. 4 icicles erupt from within a shadow, as one pierces clear through Amane's skull. However, unexpectedly, he just laughs, exclaiming he didn't see this coming. Alice pins his shadow in place, but the lights flicker, freeing Amane, who instantly cuts down Alice. Out of respect for this attempt, Amane declares he won't alert anyone for 1 whole minute. Shizuku charges forward, but slips on Alice's blood, instantly realizing Amane's ability caused her stumble. She launches prison orbs, but amazingly all 3 shots miss. Shizuku asks if his ability can even affect her aim, but Amane just jokingly says that everyone can make a mistake. Taking a cut to her head, Shizuku accidentally backs into a wall, before panicking and showering the room with ice bullets. With merely a wet shirt to show for it, Amane states that time is up.
I'm not sure what's going on, folks, so let's take a look at the waiting rooms.
The surveillance cameras kick on, followed by Amane asking for Shizuku to not be punished harshly. He announces to the entire stadium that she did this due to her womanly love for her older brother Iki Kuragane. At this point, Shizuku is physically unable to respond. However, the wall explodes, with Stella daring Amane to speak another word. Shizuku then blacks out as Stella carries her away. Just as expected, Shizuku winds up disqualified from the tournament, though she's not expelled as even the judges find Amane's actions to be suspicious. Later that same night, Iki is in the park, using a piece of paper to slice through wood. He attempts but fails to cut through metal, just as Stella arrives. Iki immediately thanks her for rescuing Shizuku, because he doesn't think he could have done it without assaulting Amane, prompting her to state it's only natural to protect your future sister. He then warns Stella that her next opponent, Oma Kuragane, is extremely strong, causing her to throw an explosive ball of paper, stating that she's grown since their previous encounter. Stella then departs, but not before reminding Iki that she'll be waiting for him in the finals. It's only a moment later that Prime Minister Tsukikage arrives, but Iki is much too cautious to have a conversation with him. Though that all goes right out the window when Tsukikage mentions that Iki won't be fighting Amane tomorrow.
She's back once again. She's royalty from another land. She's the Crimson Princess, Stella Vermilion. He's entering from the opposite side. He's the prodigy from Japan. He's the Gale Sword Emperor, Oma Kuragane.
Toka and Kanata just arrived to the 7 Stars as well, and sit down beside Iki, explaining that they came alongside the Demon Princess.
So, Miss Saikyo, what's your take on this current matchup?
I mean, it's a battle containing 2 A-rank blazers, so it's bound to be a great fight.
Oma charges forward and is met by an ineffective barrage of fire magic. Stella then deploys her Empress dress just before Oma's sword clashes with her own, launching them both backwards. Kanata is beyond impressed, prompting Iki to declare that Stella is just getting warmed up, though Toka says the same thing for Oma. Stella concentrates massive amounts of magic into her sword, then simultaneously unleashes 7 flaming dragons, which are all blown away by a single massive tornado. Oma boldly asks if that's the best she can do, though Stella appears behind him, followed by blood soaking the ground. Surprisingly, Stella is the one bleeding, and she's very confused as to why her successful attack didn't do any damage. Toka, however, saw this coming, as she ran into the same issue during her duel with Oma. Her sword once again slams into Oma's unflinching side, only to be met by a powerful kick. She wants to know how his body can be so tough, which he exclaims to simply be his resolve. You see, being born a prodigy meant that Oma effortlessly dominated every youth tournament he entered. This led to him growing bored and traveling the world in search of stronger foes. He eventually stumbled upon a blazer known as Tyrant, who would have killed him if Edelweiss didn't come to his rescue. Oma's utter powerlessness in that battle led to him taking drastic measures, as he then releases
Tenru Gusoku,
Stella realizes that until now, he was weighing himself down with massive amounts of wind magic. He states it took a long time, but that debilitating amount of air pressure eventually forced his body to adapt and evolve. In the blink of an eye, his blade reaches Stella, forcing her to retreat. He launches wind blades, which Stella successfully reads and dodges, except for the last one, which was conjured through sheer force alone. The Galesword Emperor closes the distance, locking blades, followed by him punching his own sword, launching her through the wall and outside the stadium.
I've only ever witnessed someone being blasted out of the stadium once before.
Yeah, but a physical attack without magic isn't dealing any damage to a rank A.
Descending back into the arena, Stella asks what drives Oma to push himself so far. He declares it's simply a childish dream, and Stella honestly finds it admirable that his motivation can be so simple. The Crimson Princess then raises her sword toward the heavens, before plunging it deep into her own chest. It was their final day of training when Miss Psycho asked if Stella knew what was holding her back. Of course, she had no idea, causing the Demon Princess to give her a very real and deep wound. Psycho isn't pulling her punches anymore, as the shocked Stella can barely defend herself. The Demon Princess declares it's better for her to miss the 7 stars due to an injury than for her to die fighting Oma. This overwhelming opponent pushes Stella to the brink of giving up, which is where Miss Crimson Princess then remembers that she's renowned for wielding the strongest magic power in the whole world. For the first time ever, she lets go of all restraint, as a proud Psycho explains that her weakness was not relying enough on her own overwhelming magic power. A monstrous roar bellows from deep within the Crimson Princess, shaking the entire arena and even causing Oma to step back. She cautions her opponent to start defending himself, before seemingly teleporting across the ring, driving her fist deep into his stomach.
Whoa, that blow left burn marks on his skin!
No, those burns definitely reach all the way to his bones.
Iki finally understands, prompting Toka to ask for an explanation. It turns out that Stella was never a mere fire user, as her true power causes her to manifest the abilities of a mythical dragon. She was just too powerful to ever realize that she was using her magic wrong. Stella charges straight toward her foe, and is met with a lightning-fast deep cut to her chest, though without missing a beat she breaks his shin with a kick. Now struggling to stand, Oma watches in amazement as Stella's wound instantly closes itself. Upon taking another hit, Oma begins to tremble, as he's reminded of his battle against the tyrant. His blade successfully pierces Stella's hand, but she simply grabs hold of it and begins pummeling Oma with her other fist, before ending this flurry with an uppercut. For a brief moment, Oma even debates on just giving up, but his resolve holds true as he forces himself back up.
Did he seriously just stand up with a broken leg?
He's manipulated the air into forming a makeshift cast.
The Galesword Emperor then summons his trump card, declaring that it's time to end this. Stella accepts his challenge, followed by these massive elemental swords colliding. All the while, Director Kurano is forced to evacuate the civilians, as Stella's blade cuts through the stands, even extending into the ocean.
Looks like the Crimson Princess is the victor due to her superior magic power.
That's not quite right, because Stella earned this win through her hard work.
Now that last blow left Oma unconscious, but still on his feet, prompting Stella to quickly turn away so that she'll only remember him standing strong. Kanata and Toka are both in awe at what they just witnessed, and Iki is sweating as he's unsure how he's supposed to fight against that overwhelming power. Toka, however, states that she'll be cheering for Iki, just as he departs to prepare for his next match. Though before heading to the waiting room, he stops by to visit Alice and Shizuku, who are both fully healed. Shizuku is embarrassed that she failed, on top of thinking that Iki is disappointed in her. This stern brother wraps her in a big hug, thanking her for loving him so much. Iki then promises to beat Amane, causing Shizuku to ask for his plan. He, however, doesn't have one, and simply declares that he'd never lose to somebody like him. In the stands, Alice congratulates Stella, who then asks how Shizuku is doing. She proclaims to be feeling wonderful since Iki gave her such an intimate hug. Alice then wonders why Director Kurano looks so worn out, which she explains to be due to some idiot wrecking half the arena. Stella doesn't make any excuses and instead reminds everyone of the multiple disasters Kurano caused in her youth.
Approaching from the west gate, we have another one, Iki Kuragane, and his opponent entering from the opposite side, Bad Luck Amane Shinomiya.
Yes, the boy who's yet to have an official match due to all those coincidences.
The referee prepares to begin the semifinal match, just as Amane announces his intention to forfeit. The entire stadium is stunned, followed by Amane exclaiming that even if he wins, everyone will just suspect him of cheating, though he will stick around to cheer Iki on. Shizuku then realizes that Amane must be planning to use his ability to mess with the finals, causing Stella to rage at the thought of him interfering. Amane, however, promises not to wish for his victory, but Iki just tells him it's time to drop the act, revealing his true name, Shion Amamiya. Amane demands to know how Iki learned that name, which he readily reveals that the Prime Minister predicted this whole situation. You then find out that Iki can't stand Amane because he acts so helpless, just like how Iki did as a child, and that Amane can't stand Iki because he somehow has hope for the future. Iki then openly welcomes Amane's interference in the finals, because he nor Stella will ever accept an outcome that wasn't a fair fight. Amane screams that Iki should be a nobody, and manifests his device while taking back his forfeit. The referee verifies that Iki is allowing this, followed by Amane declaring that Iki will die in this arena. Amane wildly charges forward, yet each strike lands perfectly in Iki's weak spot. Shizuku suspects that Amane is secretly talented, but Kurano debunks this, saying it's just due to his ability. Iki begins to counterattack, so Amane jumps backward, blanketing the entire arena with his devices. He then throws two swords, which begin endlessly bouncing around, all the while targeting Iki. The blades are deflected easily enough, until more and more swords are added to the equation. Amane believes that he will win without being touched, just as Iki uses his jacket to catch all the swords, before barely nicking Amane's face. This is followed by another flurry of blows, where Iki lightly grazes Amane's throat. Shizuku is amazed that Iki is somehow avoiding Amane's ability, prompting Kurano to explain that he's not. His body is just so well trained that it automatically fixes any mistakes. Iki then lands a deep cut on Amane's arm, before proclaiming that his next strike will finish this. In a fit of rage, Amane drops his sword. Iki closes in. Die! Iki instantly collapses to his knees, vomiting, as Toka can see that his heart no longer has an electrical pulse. Amane begins mocking him, proudly revealing that he stopped Iki's heartbeat. Amane then swings his sword down onto Iki's neck, causing Stella and Shizuku to both cry out. A massive pool of blood runs across the ring, as it flows out of Amane's body. He demands to know what happened, as Iki explains that he's able to control his heart manually.
Are you kidding me? Is that even possible?
Without that amount of body control, he'd never be able to copy Edelweiss.
Amane shouts for the worst one to just give up already, though Iki proclaims that Amane's ability was the easiest to overcome so far. Then after failing to stand back up, Amane passes out, dreaming about his childhood. You find out that due to his ability, Amane never received praise for anything he accomplished. At one point, he even saved people from a burning building, but everyone just assumed he started the fire, so that he could play the hero. This eventually caused Amane to doubt his own mother's love, so he decided to put it to the test by deactivating his magic surrounding his mother's happiness. This caused her to lose almost her entire savings, which resulted in her physically abusing Amane and demanding he wish for her happiness. 6 hellish months later, his absent father came to his rescue. However, it was clear that he only wanted Amane's ability for himself. The F-rank Iki Kuragane is officially declared the winner of this semi-final match, but for some reason Shizuku can't shake this eerie feeling. The ref takes a moment to administer first aid to Amane, when his eyes suddenly snap open, revealing a black void. Black arms reach out for the referee, but Iki manages to yank him out of the way.
I don't know what power this is, but it looks downright evil.
But it definitely has me interested.
Everything the arms touch immediately begins to decay, and Amane slowly stands back up, exclaiming that his power is unbeatable. Kurano urges Iki to leave this to the professionals, causing Amane to lash out at the spectators, telling everyone not to interfere.
Looks like his magic has finally taken physical form.
Wait, Miss Saikyo, where are you going?
To stop his tantrum, of course.
Miss Saikyo lands in the ring, but Iki orders her to protect the spectators. Saikyo states his match is already over, but he points out that this rampage is only aimed at him. Iki then thinks back on his grandfather's words of encouragement, and decides he will be that light for Amane. Activating Itoshura, he begins easily slicing his way through the hands. The crowd cheers for the F-rank knight, as Saikyo proclaims that Amane's ability is much easier to deal with in its physical form. Iki closes the distance, only for his opponent's strikes to grow even faster. Amane then declares for the first time that he actually wants to win this contest, only to be promptly cut down by Iki. Iki asks if he feels frustrated at his loss, and Amane admits that he does. Iki then encourages him to use that feeling to grow stronger, so that one day he might be able to conquer Iki. This would be the ultimate achievement for Amane, since his wish-fulfilling magic doesn't work on him.
Not only did he win the match, but he even subdued that rampaging magic, which means tomorrow's finals will unbelievably be the Crimson Princess versus the Rank F.
Shizuku gleefully rushes to the waiting room to congratulate her brother, where she finds him leaning against the wall, but he's not breathing. The doctor emerges from the operating room to Shizuku demanding an update. They fixed multiple issues within his body, but every time they do, something else fails. Kurano then reveals that Iki was grazed by a hand of death while saving the referee. Shizuku screams that she's going to murder Amane to save her brother, but their father states it won't work since it's still active even though Amane is unconscious. Itsuki wonders if Kurano could somehow reverse time on Iki's body, but she explains that humans can't survive more than a minute or two of reversal. Shizuku then attempts to force her way into the operating room, just as a familiar voice exclaims that it's much too noisy in here. Of course, Shizuku needs to know if Kiriko can save him, prompting her to respond by asking if Shizuku knows who she's talking to. Elsewhere, Amane finally wakes up, just as Saikyo enters the room. His first instinct is to ask if Iki survived, prompting her to reveal that Kiriko was the victor. Amane is ready to accept whatever punishment, though he would like Saikyo to put in a good word for him, since he is earnestly sorry. She easily agrees, under the condition that he promises not to interfere with the final match. Miss Saikyo then steps out into the hallway, where she finds Prime Minister Tsukikage. They quickly discuss Akatsuki's downfall, followed by Saikyo asking about his magic power. He, however, refuses to answer, and states that it will be revealed soon enough. Iki wakes up around 10:30 at night, an entire day later. Realizing he's late for his match, he sprints to the stadium to find Stella standing there. She's been here all day waiting for him, and Iki curses himself for daring to miss their promised match. Stella is just glad to see his frustration, and asks if everyone else was able to hear that. Kaide announces that the tournament can't end until they've witnessed another one versus the Crimson Princess. Our competitors then lock blades, as the finals is set to take place at 7 p.m. tomorrow. I just want to give a big shout out to my newest patron, Demo16.